Welcome in, it's Chuck. Appreciate you so much for joining me on a whatever day this is. I think it's Tuesday. It is Tuesday. I put a tweet out yesterday, and I want to have a conversation about Ohio State talent, what Ryan Day has done with that talent, because there's kind of a big discussion, not just amongst the Ohio State fan base, but kind of nationally about Ohio State, about the talent that they had on this 2025 and 2024 roster, which is unparalleled. Well, I guess it is technically parallel. Georgia and Ohio State, the only two programs who have ever had 25 players drafted, and that is an all-time record, not particularly close. Georgia wins 2 national championships. Ohio State wins 1 national championship. Has Ohio State underachieved under Ryan Day over 7 years by just winning 1 national championship? And to me, well, we'll get there, but I got a lot of Buckeye opinions on this. I put out a tweet yesterday, got a lot of feedback on it, and I want to share some Ohio State opinions on Ryan Day's best coaching jobs in the last 7 years and his maybe worst coaching jobs. And we'll get into that in a little bit. But Chris Lowe, former ESPN reporter, now with On3, spent a couple of days, it seems like, embedded in the Woody Hayes Athletic Center because he's put out, I don't know, maybe 3 pieces from his visit there. I believe it was probably like 2 weeks ago. And the most recent came out yesterday, was a long article on 3 about Ryan Day that included quotes from Jeremiah, James Laurinaitis, Jalen McClain, Kenyatta Jackson, Arthur Smith. But the star of the story was Ryan Day. And I'm going to use this article kind of as my jumping point to go off in a few different areas of Ohio State football. But he starts with the game, of course. Every single article that I have seen written about Ryan Day over the last, 3-4 years has started with the game. Now, this is a national championship winning coach, and I understand that his record in the game and starting it there seems natural, but it almost feels like overkill. I think my first year, maybe my most played show or my most viral moment was me ripping on a few people who were downplaying the 2024 loss of the game. And essentially, to me, had the arrogance to tell the dumb Ohio State fans who, after 100 years of organic hate, that they just hadn't caught on yet. They hadn't caught on yet that this game doesn't have value anymore because it's just one of 12 games on the schedule. And Ohio State fans need not care as much as they do back off Ryan Day. Now, I don't think they quite understand that value is what we decide has value, not because they change the system around us, and they will always change the system around us in the never-ending quest for more cash. But we, as fans, decide what has value, and clearly the Ohio State fan base has decided and loudly rebuked what they had to say, that game is always going to have value to us, whether or not it matters in the new postseason format, the old one, or anything they come up with in the next 20 or 30 years. So my stance on that game is that it's extremely important for both universities. It's important to the residents of both states, and it's never going to be less important because they change things. But what I do find obnoxious is the fact that every in-depth story about a national championship winning coach at Ohio State, Ryan Day, a guy who, 132 programs would trade their head coach for him in a second, starts with his failures in that game. It bothers me. At any rate, Lowe says there were polls done by outlets covering Ohio State in both 2024 and 2025, asking Ohio State fans if they would rather beat Michigan or win the national title. The results depended on the timing of those polls, but there were a significant number of fans who chose a win over the Wolverines. I think this is always going to be very dependent on timing. I think had you gone back during the Meyer era and polled a lot of Buckeye fans, that would have definitely been a higher percentage who said a national championship. I can say that coming off of 2024, actually going into 2024, we'll call it like that, like going into the 2024 season, I felt like it was about 50-50 from the things I did on this show as far as what do you want to win more this year, a national championship or the game, which you haven't won since 2019, which was incredibly hard for Ohio State fans to process coming off of 2 decades of dominance. That you lose in 2024, you're now looking at, you're not going to play them again. It's going to be 6 calendar years since you beat them. And it was even a struggle for me, who has always had the national championship as the number one goal in my mind. That's always been number one to me, dating back to Cooper, right? Like, national championship for me, I'd rather be the champion of the whole country than the Midwest. It's the way I always looked at it. But I had a hard time with that question in 2019 or 2024 entering the season. Which do I prefer, right? Like, I want to win that national championship. Is it going to feel the same if you don't beat them? Just stuff we talk about in the off season. I eventually fell on, I got to win the national championship. I got to choose the national championship, but obviously I wrestled with it. So I have no issue with anybody who said, no, I got to win that. I got to win the game. I deal with these people on a daily basis, and many of us do. Many of us live closer to the border. That can depend on it too. Your outlook, how many of them do you deal with? Because they are so obnoxious, and I'm sure they feel the same way about us. And that matters, man. That's a 365-day discussion. I got a text from my buddy Dan the other day. Dan has an Ohio State coaster on his desk. He lives in Arizona. Every day he comes into work, his coaster is flipped the other way. Every day. That's obnoxious. You know what I mean? Like, that is obnoxious stuff. We deal with this. It's real. But after Lowe talks about the game and the failures in the game and now making it right for 1 year, he talks about Day having never done the trifecta, never hit the 3 program goals in one single year, though he has all 3 goals on his resume, winning the game, winning the conference championship, and winning the national championship. Now, to me, when we talk about these 3 goals, the conference championship has always just been kind of felt like redundant to me. Like, if you win the game, you're the best in the conference. That's the way it's always felt to me. I look at my basement, and I've told this story before. I have more memorabilia than can fit on the walls, and I have boxes and boxes of stuff. And I was talking about how many Big Ten conference championship pieces of memorabilia do I have? Of all the stuff I have, I got one. It's a sweatshirt. I think I got it at an Acme in the mid 90s because it was just there at Acme. Oh, there's another piece. And I grabbed it. And I think that's the only thing. And I'm surprised that I still have it. Nonetheless, those are the 3 goals. Those are the tasks at hand. And Ryan Day said, we worked hard to make sure that we got the rivalry right last year, but it's going to be the same thing this year. The expectation isn't just to win the game. The expectation is to win the game and then win the rest of them. And I've always tried to make sure that everybody in the building, from the day I took this job to now, accepts that expectation. That's what we all signed up for. And yes, we do expect to win every game here. That's how it goes. And I think the staff understands that, and it's as good as it's ever been. Then he gets to JJ, and JJ talks about last year and says, not good enough, not at Ohio State. That's why they pay us. That's why they pay Coach Day to reach our goals. Listening to him say that's why they pay us probably still shocks a lot of people. Like, it's just interesting to hear it. I don't know that it's totally set in hearing the guys talk like that. But yeah, man, that's a very wealthy dude. He goes on to say, the first one was to beat the team up north. Then it's winning the Big Ten championship. The third one is winning the national championship. It's the reason you come to Ohio State, to accomplish those 3 things. And I feel like this year we got a very good chance to do that. And I love to hear him say that. And I've talked before about my Mount Rushmore, which includes Chick Harley, Archie Griffin, Orlando Pace, and Troy Smith is my 4th. And we don't need to get into why I have all those selections and justify. I get the most pushback on Chick Harley, but then I think there's a lot of people who are like, yeah, Chick Harley absolutely has to be there. But when we look at my Mount Rushmore, Troy Smith is the most fluid of picks. While I love Troy, he is borderline. And when we talk about JJ, I believe that right now he is already kind of a lock to make my personal Mount Rushmore. And when I hear him talk, every time I hear him talk, it just gets more and more solidified. He's already put in 2 fantastic seasons with the national championship. I don't really care about the awards that some other individual thinks that he should or should not win, because that's just somebody's choice. what I see that he's done for the program and what he will have done for the program even after he leaves is just tremendous. And for me, it's more about what you do on the field and what you do as a player, but what you do for the program and what you eventually do for the state. And to me, it's just he's going to get on my Mount Rushmore if he's not there already. JJ continues, if you come to Ohio State, you got to be different. Here at Ohio State, you're not bigger than this, no matter who you are. If I had come in here all cocky, just trying to get by in practice, they would have thrown me into the curb. I would have been just another good high school wide receiver, and they would have found another one like me. A guy like that with that kind of attitude, it just doesn't get any better than that. Then he talked to Kenyatta Jackson. And Kenyatta Jackson, man, when we look at this guy, number one, ultimate all-time, like if looks got you drafted in the first round, it's Kenyatta Jackson. The fact that he is now a spokesman for the Ohio State defense, certainly not something that any of us saw coming a couple of years ago. He is actually great at it. He's incredibly blunt. He spares no fools, as they say. There are no extra words. He's straight to business. I'll never forget the first press conference with him in that role was, is this an angry team coming off of last year, coming off of the losses last year? Now, most guys in this situation know exactly what soundbite the media is looking for there. Hell yeah. We're furious. We're coming in guns blazing, etc. And Kenyatta's like, I mean, there's 51 new dudes. We're just trying to get to know each other, essentially. And then he realizes towards the end, as he's going on, all right, I know what they want to hear. Yeah, we are an angry team, though, right? Like, he just spares no fools, and I love that about him. And he's doing a great job, and rocking that number 2, he looks unbelievable out there. Will this be the year he pops? He talks about the game as well in the article, and he said, we changed some things around. Mainly, we just practiced and prepared like it was any other week. And this one is always an interesting thing. When a game means so much and it's played every year, we psychoanalyze it back and front from year to year. Is there a right reason? No, there never is. Or, I'm sorry, is there a right answer to how you should approach that game as Ohio State? It's if you're putting too much into it, then you go the other way. If you're not putting enough into it, then you go the other way. And we've seen this go back and forth over the course of our lives. We're not putting enough emphasis. We're putting way too much emphasis. The pressure's too much, or we're not caring enough, whatever it is. The recipe they hit on last year is the one, hopefully, that will work again come 2026 version of the game. But they raised some eyebrows, Lowe continues, last week when he was on Cam Hayward's podcast. So he's on Cam Hayward's podcast, and Lowe explains what he said, which specifically the quote, across the board at Ohio State, there's an expectation that when you come here, you're coming to be a first or second rounder, regardless of your position. Just like if we don't win games and we don't win championships, they're going to find a new coach. Well, if you're not a first or second rounder, then this probably is not the place for you. Now, I don't think this raises any eyebrows at all if instead of what he said, he just changes a couple of words around there and says what he's actually meaning to say, which is, we want you to have the attitude of, I am going to be a first or second rounder. He's not saying that you have to be a first or second rounder or we don't want you. He's saying you need to demand that of yourself. You need to want to be excellent. That needs to be your goal. But somehow there's a whole lot of people who either didn't understand that's what he meant, or are just being disingenuous and taking it as an opportunity to mock him or twist it around. We even saw people in the Ohio State, former players, who didn't quite understand what he meant by that. And that's a shame. But a lot of people were mocking him over here saying, before the draft, look, he's only had this many first or second round draft picks. How can he possibly say this? And then the draft happened. And Ryan Day ties Kirby Smart's record of 22 and 23, Georgia with 25 players drafted. The Buckeyes come out of this draft in 2024, tying that record with 25. Now, Nick Saban's best 2-year run was 22 guys. Miami's best in their heyday, both of them, 20 guys. USC, 21 guys in their heyday under Pete Carroll. So let's be clear here, man. We are talking about legendary talent. That those two Georgia teams, those Buckeye teams. And it's what's led to the debate of, has Ohio State underachieved under Day, not just in these past 2 years, because Georgia was able to win back-to-back national championships, but over the course of his career with the amount of talent he's had. And that's what we're going to weigh in on here. But after we get a little hit from James Laurinaitis, who I've heard tell this story before, but every time I hear him tell it, I just put myself in the, I guess, kind of mindset of, I'm a young man and he is my coach. And how could this possibly be any more powerful than listening to James Laurinaitis saying, I remember being a second-time All-American and being in practice and looking at the 4- and 5-star linebackers they brought in, thinking they were coming in to take my job. And there was urgency in every single rep for me because I thought they were trying to recruit over me. These guys were coming to take my job. When you hear a guy like that, who is the Rams' all-time leading tackler, 8 years in the NFL, star, obviously at Ohio State, talking like that, it's just a little something different. And clearly, he was the most obvious hire in the history of Ohio State football. Nonetheless, Ryan Day gets credit for that hire. I saw somebody say yesterday, as I was reading, that Ryan Day's hiring has been hit or miss. And I'm just looking at that going, compared to who? Compared to 100% perfect? Okay, it's hit or miss compared to 100% perfect. Compared to most college football coaches in the top tier of college football, his hiring's been outstanding. Outstanding. Dating back Chip Kelly, Jim Knowles, Carlos Loughlin, Keenan Bailey, Matt Guerrieri, Tim Walton, Matt Patricia. Jury's still out on Tyler Bowen and Cortez Hankton. You certainly can't judge Bowen off of 1 year, though. I know a lot of people would like to. That's just simply not fair. And yesterday's video where we talked about Davis Seaman's boom video, the second half of that video is all about Bowen. If you haven't seen that, which I did feel kind of bad putting that all on Davis Seaman's video, but I just had to get it off my chest. But Ryan Day's been an outstanding hire, outstanding at staffing. And right now, the Ohio State staff is the best it's ever been, in my opinion. So I don't know how you could say it's been hit or miss. Everybody's going to have a miss that you can point to, a few. Most people are going to have 5 or 6. He doesn't have that. He's got a few. Then they go back to the roster. And Ryan Day says, we signed a big class this year, which is good because I think we hit on a lot of those guys. And now we need to develop them and retain them. And did they ever, when we talk about hitting on a lot of those guys? Here's the crazy part, man. When we look at the talent and we look at 24 and 25 draft classes, it's only getting better coming up the pipe. The classes coming in are only getting better. How much of them can you retain? The scouting has been tremendous. And I ran these stats once before. But when we just look back, since the transfer portal era, the class of 2022 had 21 guys. 16 of them ended up leaving. 16 did not finish at Ohio State out of 21. The ones that finished, you got 2 drafted already in Sonny Styles and Caden. And left on the team, you've got Kenyatta Jackson, Carson Hinsman, they'll both be drafted, and Bennett Christian. So that's 5 starters out of that crew there. In 2023, you had 21 guys in the class. You've already got 11 transferred out. 3 of them in the NFL now. 7 remain on the team. So that's pretty good as of now. Austin Saraville, Luke Montgomery, Brandon Innes, Jermaine Matthews, Josh Padilla, Will Smith Jr., Jason Moore. So out of that group, out of that class, you've got 4 or 5 starters. 2024, 22 guys come in, 11 are already out, and you're likely to have about 5 starters from that class. 2025, you up the ante, 26 guys come in. 8 guys have transferred so far. The dudes we still got on this roster, Zion Grady, Epi Satanile, Riley Pettijohn, TJ Alford, Bo and Isaiah, Nate Roberts, Devin Sanchez, Jake Cook, Carter Lowe, Deshaun Stewart, Phillip Bell. Going to be much more than 5 starters out of that bunch. Then you go to the class of 2026 with 27 guys. got a chance to be Day's best class for sure. I went back and talked about the excitement coming out of spring, the things that folks like us talk about, the buzzworthy freshmen. And in 2023, it was like Jelani Thurman, Carnell Tate, Brandon Innes, Luke Montgomery. 2024, Jeremiah Smith sucked so much out of that class. But of course, you had Edric Houston, you had Jimmy DePeoples, you had Julian coming in later. 2025, Tavian St. Clair, Quincy Porter, Riley Pettijohn, Fahim Delane, Zion Grady, Bo Jackson, TJ Alford, Nate Roberts, a lot more guys. Now in 2026, just think back to this spring. When we talk about this freshman class, the excitement in spring, and this is all anecdotal, right? But Jay Timmons and Jordan Thomas, Blaine Bradford, that secondary group, the excitement, very palpable for them. Chris Henry Jr., Brock Boyd, Legend Bay, the skill guys, Sincere Johnson, Wilder, Greer, Max Riley, like it's just a substantial amount more of these freshmen that everybody's like, oh, this looks like a hit, man. This looks like a hit over here. And I think there's more than that. I'm just saying, like, that's like Nick Lauder for sure is a future starting tight end at Ohio State. That's just the ones that I think like is kind of consensus been talked about a lot. And when we look back a couple of years, it was not like that. My point is the talent is even getting better coming in. It's even getting better. Can they retain? Can they retain it? Now, starting in 2024, I wanted a national championship so bad. I thought Ohio State would win the national championship. But what I also wanted coming into 2024, and those who were with me back then will remember this, I was so irritated that my entire life, Ohio State had never just kind of been considered, not over the course of 1 year, but just the consensus best program in college football amongst honest fans and people who evaluate the sport. It went recently from Alabama, went to Kirby Smart in Georgia, where everybody just kind of bent the knee and said, yep, that's the best program. Well, I thought Ohio State was taking it over. And I thought when they won the national championship in 2024, if they could follow that up, maybe getting to the national championship in 2025, unequivocally taking over that mantle, even though Kirby would have 2 national championships, they're back in 21 and 22. Ryan Day and Ohio State would have superseded them as the best program in college football. And if it's true that Georgia was that program that everybody deferred to, and they were, and that Ohio State was that second program right there, Georgia's gone down and Ohio State has now gone up. And without a doubt, I think right now Ohio State is the best program and thought of as the best program. If anybody was being honest talking about college football right now and they had to say who is the top program in college football, it's Ohio State. And for the first time in our lives, and that has happened under Ryan Day, which is, hey, hats off to you, my man. Hats off to you. He also dipped in on the Texas game, not specifically the Texas game, but scheduling the Texas game. And Ryan Day said, you know, they say you get rewarded for playing these big out-of-conference games, but that's not necessarily true, Day said. You think about the teams that have won the national championship the last 3 years, Ohio State, Indiana, Michigan, and they didn't really play anybody outside of the conference, and that's true. They all had trash out of conference, but this isn't an example of not being rewarded for playing a big-time out of conference. It's an example that you can go undefeated, and it doesn't matter who you play, right? That's all that's an example of, Coach. When we look at Miami last year, the team that beat Ohio State in the playoffs, had they not played and beaten Notre Dame, an out-of-conference team early on in the year, they don't get in. They're not even playing in the playoffs if they don't play that game. Nobody ever brings that up. Miami is not in the playoffs to play Ohio State if they don't schedule and beat Notre Dame in week 1 or 2 of the season last year. So Day says, just in general, when you find yourself in a situation where you're a first-time head coach, you're at Ohio State, and at my age, which is all very rare, I don't think you get the benefit of the doubt. That's just how it goes. So when people see you backed up against the wall, they see you challenged, they see how you handle adversity, then you come out the back end, there's a feeling of, okay, Now we know what we have here. That doesn't change the expectations. The expectations is always to win that next game. But I think they go, or now they know what they have in the program. They know what they have in this culture. And I think the Buckeyes are proud of what that is. And that's a sign of a great foundation. That's an obligation here. You know how much it means to people. And when you lose, you feel like you're letting people down. That's the job. But it's important to prove to everybody that there is a backbone to this whole thing. We're bringing in great people, and we're winning with great people, just like Woody Hayes did 5 decades ago, which, of course, was Woody's mantra, right? You win with people. And when you spend a decade at a place, you become a Buckeye, which this is his 10th year now for Day. He says, when I first got here, I wasn't. He wasn't a Buckeye when he first got here. Now it's all his family knows. And that's true. So I think he, really feels great about being kind of accepted into, he's made a point about this several years now. Like, my family grew up here. Like, my kids grew up in Ohio. I may not be a native Ohioan, but I'm an Ohioan now. And he is. He's an Ohioan now. He's been here 10 years, raised his family here. Without a doubt, this dude's an Ohioan at this point. Now, when Lowe approaches this topic and kind of the highlight topic of the day, now that I've blabbered on for 26 minutes, I think I've hit on some things I wanted to hit on, but this was kind of why I wanted to do this show and talk about this article. Lowe approaches the topic that I've heard a lot of people talk about recently, which is, has Ohio State underachieved? When you're coaching at a place like Ohio State, and the most prevalent criticism of Day is that he hasn't won enough national championships or enough games that count, despite a factory of future NFL talent flowing through the program. In the last 2 NFL drafts alone, the Buckeyes have produced 25 picks, tying Georgia's 2-year record of 25 selections in 2022 and 2023, a haul that produced back-to-back national championships for the Dogs. Day has produced 18 first-round picks since taking over full-time at Ohio State in 2019, and 61 draft picks overall. 4 of the top 11 players drafted this year were from Ohio State, and Jeremiah Smith is Jeremiah Smith. So that's what Lowe has to say. Now, it's interesting to me that Ohio State could have stood in the way of Georgia winning those back-to-back national championships, should have stood in the way. Some things break right, some things break wrong. I think you could have just as big of an argument as has Ohio State underachieved under Day, as, boy, has he had a couple of really nasty breaks, right? A couple of nasty breaks, and that's football, right? That is football. But here's Day catching criticism for not winning more national championships, literal national championships. Has Ryan Day underachieved as the head coach at Ohio State when it comes to national championships? I am a tough grader, man. I feel like I'm a tough guy when it comes to coaches. I don't ever take the natural defend the coach. I point the finger when things I feel are off. But when we talk about end results, right? That's process stuff. When we talk about end results, did you deliver on national championships? Man, to me, there is so much that goes into winning a national championship, including a good bit of luck. And I could point to some bad luck for Ryan Day in Ohio State and Urban Meyer and Jim Tressel. It is so difficult to win national championships. You got to keep putting yourself there. You got to keep swinging. And to me, I give Ryan Day a ton of credit for amassing the talent to get himself in position to continually take a swing, get a swing. Hopefully they'll get another swing this year. The more swings you get, eventually that luck breaks your way and everything comes together like 2024. You push all the right buttons. You got all the right attitude and the right mojo working, and you win it all. And that is so flippin' rare that for us, doing that once every 10 years is a great, like that's on pace with the best of the best in the history of the sport. Winning one every 10 years, excluding Alabama. There you go, man. You win one every 10 years. You are, and you win in some other areas. You're the best program in the history of college football, which Ohio State is, every 10 years. And the funny thing is, I was listening to some comedian the other day, and he was like ripping on Columbus, and he was like, we win a national championship every 10 years and we think we're the best or something like this. Clearly, the guy doesn't know college football. Like, yes, winning a national championship at a clip or an average of every 10 years is about as good as it gets in the sport. And Ryan Day has already put his on the shelf, which tied Urban 1 in 7 years. And he wins one of the next 3 years. He supersedes what Tressel did. These are team sports, man. Team championships. Yes, you got to be a great coach. You got to have great players. You got to have great assistants. And you got to have some luck, health, luck, some calls, luck in some big games. Ryan Day's slogan, leave no doubt, like he said, comes from the Clemson game. Don't make it a one-call game. Well, that's easier said than done. Much easier said than done. He's talked about the targeting against Marv that was not called. That drives a touchdown. That game's cooked. That game's over. Ohio State now has 2 national championships under Day's belt, and Kirby only has 1. They didn't go back-to-back. Neither would have Ohio State in 2024 and 2025, but Ohio State has another one under Ryan Day's belt. We're talking about 2 Hall of Fame predecessors, and Day has done what they've done. So to say that he is underachieved, I think is horse manure. However, to say that 2025 was not a massive disappointment, I also think is horse manure. 2025 is a huge disappointment. It's a huge disappointment that I'll take to my grave. It was an opportunity to cash in that was not done. Now, I asked on Twitter the other day of Ryan Day's 7 seasons. Let me just say this one more time. If you can't admit that 2025 was a disappointment, and I don't mean winning the literal national championship. I mean, you didn't win a conference championship. You didn't win a playoff game with that collection of dudes. If you can't admit that was a disappointment, then you're a little bit of a homer. I love you, but you are a little bit of a homer if you can't bring yourself to admit that. To me, it was a huge disappointment, and I am admittedly a homer. Huge disappointment. Gosh, just look at that crew of dudes, man. Yes, they won a national championship together. They sure did. But we're talking 2025. Disappointment, abso-flippin'-lutely. But a national championship, that's never the standard to me. It's just too hard and too many things need to come together. But I wanted to talk about Ryan Day's best and worst perceived coaching performances. So I throw this out on Twitter, and I basically say, in Ryan Day's 7 seasons as the Ohio State coach, which do you think was his personal best and poorest head coaching performance throughout a season? And I threw out some criteria. This includes season-long habits of the team. This includes the staffing of the team for that particular year. This includes team results versus the strength of the overall field. Essentially the biggest missed opportunities. Now, the best teams, clearly, this got a lot of responses, 2024 thought of by the majority of folks who answered the question as his best coaching job. Was 2024 his best coaching job, where he wins a national championship after coming back from the game? We also got a lot of 2019 was his best coaching job. 2019, 13 wins, all by double digits, beats a top 10 Michigan team on the road by 30 in year number 1. The team had a total killer attitude, and he had a total killer attitude as a play caller. A lot of people think they would have given LSU a run for the money. I think it's a hell of a game myself. Also, the play calling with Justin Fields, a masterpiece. That's something that some other people have highlighted. Everything that could have gone wrong did go wrong against Clemson, but a lot of people feel that 2019 was definitely his best job as a head coach in year number 1. So consensus there, 2019, 2024, Ryan Day's best overall coaching jobs. Now, obviously, the playoff run in 2024, also maybe a little underrated in that season, getting in Jim Knowles' crap after Oregon number 1, which took a lot of stones and was something maybe a little bit different than he had done in the past, certainly with Jim Knowles. Did not care about how that relationship was moving forward or awkward. And honestly, that was the relationship ender. Didn't care. Didn't care. You're going to get this right now. I'm not walking on pins and needles with you. This is what you're doing. And that's what they did. And that was the end of that relationship. And he probably knew it, but it led him to win a national championship. The Oregon 2 game plan offensively, a masterpiece, right? So 2024, certainly 1 or 2 with 2019. But then when we get to worse seasons, we got a couple more options here. Now, 2021, I think, takes the cake for most people. It certainly got the most votes. And I did not do this in the form of a poll. I wanted people to kind of write out their logic. And we got 37 responses in, like 8 hours. So this was something a lot of people wanted to weigh in on. I thought some really thoughtful answers. But worst seasons, 2021 took the cake. And that kind of surprised me. 2021 took the cake for hiring fan favorite Kerry Combs to run the defense. And that one obviously was a decision that kind of doomed the season right before it started. You got a lot of comments for 2023 as well. 2023, one comment in particular said, you entered the season in the portal era with a quarterback battle, essentially, of 2 guys that you probably knew couldn't get it done when you could have gone into the portal. Now, that's true. I had really never thought about that, but you could have just gone to the portal and said neither of you were good enough to start at Ohio State, which would have been that would have been a real introduction for Ohio State fans to the portal back at that point in time. Would have been pretty awesome. But the quarterback situation handled very poorly in a lot of comments. Got a comment about starting Julian Fleming over Carnell Tate, and the defense needed to step up, but they absolutely crumbled when it mattered. I thought the most interesting thing was among Buckeye fans and among these near 40 responses that are very well thought out, that very few talked about the missed opportunity in 2025 as his worst coaching job. Because I would have thought, number one, recency bias, a lot of people would be saying 2025. But when I look at seasons at 2020, like 2021, which pretty much is unanimously panned as his worst season by Buckeye fans, I think, to me, that is based on a bad hire and some not so good personnel. And that is a one-time really bad decision. And I think even the greatest coaches can get themselves stuck in that situation. And when they do, there's not much they can do to get out of it, right? You got some bad secondary players. You got a bad DC. You got to ride with this for the rest of the season. And no matter how good of a coach, it's difficult to get out of it. So while it was your issue putting them in there, you're kind of stuck and there's not much you can do. Now, personally, when I look at worst coaching jobs, I look at, did you squander away an opportunity with a series of consecutive decisions rather than elevate through a series of consecutive decisions? And when I look at 2025, I feel like there were opportunities for Ryan Day to elevate that team in a way that didn't happen. And, for whatever reason, he did win the game. Do get props for that. But with that collection of talent, to go through the season the way they did, putzing about, trying to find an identity on offense, just being indecisive, hiring an offensive coordinator that's, similar to, I don't give a damn what the fan base thinks. And I know a lot of people say, well, the fan base would have went nuts if he didn't give it to Ryan Day. You know what? That's testicular fortitude, bud. You're the head coach. You're the boss, man. I'd have probably gone nuts too at the time. Full disclosure, but that's why you're the head coach. I don't feel like Brian Hartline deserved the offensive coordinator position, because I feel like coordinating is now a totally different field than assistant head coach or assistant coach at any position. It's so specialized now that going from wide receiver coach to coordinator is just a totally different jump, totally different job skills, totally different personality skills. I think Brian Hartline will be a way better head coach at USF than he was an offensive coordinator at Ohio State. And Ryan Day forced himself to go do what he didn't want to do just for somebody else, right? And a guy who walked out after a year, which probably best for both parties, but it was a bad move. We can look at it now and say it was a bad move. A loyal move. Some would say a right move, a proper move, but this is cutthroat big boy football. It was a bad move. It was a bad decision. Then you spend all season trying to find an identity on offense because you're a 3 touchdown favorite against every team you play. And you never really do. You putz about, you go with the heavy tight end sets, you stop about Washington, you change it around a bit, you go into Michigan, you bring it back then inside against Indiana, including pulling them off the field or pulling off wide receivers down in the red zone, and you end up losing that game. And then you go into the Miami game and you've got a game plan laid out for you. Louisville lays it out perfectly. This is what we got to do. Our quarterback can do it. Our wide receivers can do it. And we know that our guys up front are not going to be able to hold. We know it. And what do? Well, they focus on throwing the ball deep. 7 deep shots. There is no RPO. They're not getting the ball out fast. And then you got the slow play, which everybody, it's not even worth bringing up. We talked about it all year. If these guys don't practice 2-minute drill, when they need 2-minute drill, they are not going to be able to run 2-minute drill. Well, sure enough, they were able to run it. Now, they only ran it once during the season against Penn State. They were able to run it, and they ran it against Miami right before halftime. Do you think they go back after moving the ball like that? No, they don't go back. 3 possessions in the second half. You're done. You're out. It's over. To me, I feel like 2025 was the opportunity for Ryan Day to affect things throughout the season in a way, because he was so talented, that it could have been one of his better coaching jobs, and instead it was one of his worst. So to me, it's 2025 for all those reasons. I feel like you had an opportunity. You could have changed it in a lot of ways. Whereas 2019, you were stuck, man. I'm sorry. 2021, you were stuck with what you had. You were stuck with that personnel. You were stuck with that coach. Wasn't a lot of ways out of it. There were ways out of it in 2025, and you weren't able to do it. So for me, it's 2025. Nonetheless, should a coach ever be expected to win a national championship? No. It's just too many things have to go together, have to go right to win a national championship. Look back at 2024. If Mitchell Melton doesn't check Ryan Day, that meeting never gets popped off. And what happens then? Like, too many things have to go right, man. It's fate. So anyway, is it disappointing that we've had so many near misses as Ohio State fans? Yes. Is it like, do we have it better than literally anybody else? I think so. So nothing to complain about for sure. We're in the mix every year, man. And that is a ton of fun. Great fun being a Buckeye fan. So Ryan Day, I wouldn't trade him for anybody. Couple more years of Cignetti doing what he's doing now, and then we'll talk, but I wouldn't trade him for Kirby. I talked about this on Buckeye Huddle Primetime last night, which airs over on the Buckeye Huddle channel every Monday and Thursday at 8 p.m. live. Kirby Smart in the NIL era, as we've watched the talent drop, Kirby will not bend the knee and spend on top tier talent. He literally has to be the lower offer. And it's a pride thing. Like, you're going to come to Georgia because we're going to develop you better. And I will not pay you as much as they're paying you. I refuse to, because I'm going to be the lowest offer. And if I was a Georgia fan, it would drive me nuts that he's allowing his ego to have really talented players walk out. And their talent is slowly going down. So I certainly would not trade Ryan Day for Kirby Smart. But I know a lot of people would. I wouldn't. Cignetti, talk to me in a couple years. Right now, nobody. As far as a program builder, the best there is. The best. When we look at the talent and the attitude up there, what they're going to gain from this collection of drafts in 2024 and 2025, it's things are going good and they're only getting better. So, all right, guys. Appreciate you so much, and I'll talk to you soon. JUCK'S out.